That's it. So thank you, everybody. I want to welcome Dina. She's about to jump into the functional movement style screening. She's a leader, an implementer, a learner, and a go-giver. And she's here to give you your all on functional movement and how to use it, whether you're a beginner, you've been using it, and how she's implemented her model. And such a wonderful time to help the 50+ clientele really have some sort of tool that you can use inside of your practice today. So thank you, Dina, and please save your questions for the end, and we'll look forward to answering those.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, JR. Big hug, virtual hug. Thank you so much. And hello, and thank you to everybody on here live. And if you're watching this on the recording, thank you for taking some time to learn a little bit more today. So yes, we're going to be covering movement screening using an FMS style approach. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to tell you a little bit about my own personal journey with regard to fitness training and being a business owner. And then I'm going to take you through kind of the evolution that I went through with screening, with doing some kind of client screening protocol. And I'll tell you kind of the steps I went through and everything I experienced. At the end, I'll give you the punchline right now, is I developed, with the help of people, my own FMS style movement screen, okay? And I'll go over my own screening process a little bit as well. So yes, you'll learn what is FMS. So I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. And you'll learn kind of how they do things, and then an FMS style approach that you can use with the 50+ market, because it is problematic in terms of using the real FMS. So there you go. Awesome. So let's get going. Let's see, I click here. There we go. So yes, so I'm a corporate, I like to say that, corporate slacker. I loved, I did a lot of different things over, 25 years or so. Worked for startups, worked for mid-range companies, only worked for a couple of really big companies. I really enjoyed eating at the corporate trough, right? Which is, you get paid a lot of money, you got all your benefits, right? You got your vacation time, all those things. But I got laid off for the gazillionth time, didn't realize exactly how bad I was actually at working in corporate, and realized I was totally burnt out, and somebody suggested that I buy a gym. Ha! That still makes me laugh today. And afterwards, I found out that this person who had suggested I buy a gym was actually joking at the time. She was the member of a little knockoff Curves, and there's about 100 people doing this Curves style thing. And the gal who had it, she'd had it for like 12 years, but she had basically run it into the ground and was closing it. And my friend, all the other members were kind of freaking out and saying, hey, let's get someone to buy it, or let's buy it ourselves, or how can we keep this open? I went to lunch with her the next day, and she's like, how's the job hunt going? And I'm like, yeah, it isn't really going very far. And because I just was not interested in looking for a job. And so she suggested I go into small business. And so I dove in head first, right, with no experience in fitness and no experience ever running a business. And what's my funny is I really didn't think. I figured, how hard could it possibly be? But it was, of course, quite difficult. But I do love learning. I'm quite resourceful. And so, yeah, I just figured stuff out as I went along. And so, yes, I learned to be a trainer. Did not think that I was going to need to do that. But yes, I had to learn to become a trainer, learn how to train, learn how the body works, how to help people that are coming in that aren't moving quite so well as you'd like, with lots of injuries and things like that. So this is what I bought right there on the upper left-hand corner. So it was a knockoff curve. So it's those pneumatic machines. It's not pneumatic. I think they're, I can't remember the name of them, but they got the little hydraulic system. It's just an air hydraulic thing. And that's what creates the tension and the force. And you got a little man that would say, okay, next station. And people would just go to next station, right? Certainly not ideal when it comes to exercise, if you ask me. It is great as an entry point, but you can quickly, you know, outperform it in just like a few months. I bought the business in March, and within 30 days, I realized it was a bad idea because basically nobody really wanted this kind of fitness. And I would have had to spend a lot of money in marketing dollars to get the number of people I needed to make it viable based on the rent and things like that, to make it a viable business. I met Dan and Cody in a month later. And they said to me, right, I saw Cody's presentation, and there were two things that he said during his presentation, which was, it's all about the older population. I said, oh, I have lots of older people coming. And they said, it's all about small places, small boutique places, not about big box gyms. And so I said, okay, great. Not a total and complete disaster. At least I've got two things going for me. And so that's where I had to start making changes. It took about 11 months, but I transformed the place from that curves to, I got rid of the equipment, you know, cleaned the place up, finally, you know, doing small group training, I got Chris's equipment, Chris Severs, who's on at this time. You're going to want to go back and watch his presentation later, and started doing that. I did that for about 3 years, and then the place next door became available. And that was another huge step, was expanding. And that was probably one of the best decisions ever. Once I had the wall taken down, I'll tell you, I walked in that door and I saw this huge space, and I actually did start crying, because now I felt like, wow, this really is a solid training facility. And it's just evolved over 7 years now, always adding a little something, always improving, right? Better is always possible, and just always trying to figure out how to get better, how to improve my service, how to improve my own skills, how to, and then carry that into my employees and my trainers. Okay, so it's 2,500 square feet. 2,500 square feet. Normally I have 12 people in at one time. I'll have 2 groups going. So my regular small groups are 6 people. So then I'll do 2 groups, 2 trainers going at the same time. Before the pandemic, so March of 2020, I was at 150 clients, and the 2019 gross revenue was 400,000. So not too bad, considering I paid $5,000 for the whole business. Awesome. Now, okay, now I couldn't have done all this without FAI, and this is where I want to give a huge, huge thank you. This is my first time talking at the summit, and I, you know, honestly, I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Dan and Cody. So I love that picture because it shows you how tall Dan and Cody are. I did, like I said, I had bought this place. I didn't know anything about fitness. I'm in the Bay Area, and there was a local, the Mania conference that was happening up the road from me. Says, well, I'm a fitness owner now. I might as well go to a conference and learn stuff. And that's where I saw Cody's presentation. I said, hey, I told him my situation. He said, you need to talk to my partner, Dan. And so that was, I had a phone call with Dan. He's like, wow, you need a lot of help. And that's where it all started. I went to the San Diego, was their very second workshop in 2014, went to San Diego, went out to Lafayette, West Lafayette, Indiana for their business coaching weekend. And then that was about 6 months down the road, I finally called Dan. I said, okay, you need to coach me. You need to get me from this thing full of equipment to full on doing small group training. And I think I was his very first coaching client. Then we had the summit, the very first summit, and then they kicked off their mastermind. And I'm going to totally claim it because I know it's true, I was the very first mastermind member. I remember, I'll tell this story real quick. We were at Fitness Business Summit, which is Bedros Keuilian's event that he used to have. And he was pitching and getting everybody to sign up for his mastermind. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to do this. I have to do this. And so the very next day, because Bedros is really great at getting you to want to sign up. The very next day I go to Cody and I said, hey, so do you think I should, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Should I do this? Do you think I should join Bedros's mastermind? And he said, without a blink of an eye, says, why are you going to join Bedros's mastermind when you can join ours? And I'm like, and I still to this day think that he came up with that idea right then and there, figuring he could get a whole bunch of people to sign up for the mastermind. I'm like, well, yeah, I'll do your mastermind. Absolutely. And then I was with the mastermind till about 2019. And so FAI, what FAI has done is just amazing. They have been at the total vanguard of, fitness for the older adult, bringing people together, creating content, creating coursework, really pushing the boundaries so that people are thinking about this market even more, which has led to more people doing it, which has led to more competition, but hey, more is better. And then by being a part of FAI and being in the mastermind and being a part of the group in there is I met so many freaking awesome, amazing people who, again, I could never have done this just on my own. I would be, I'd be sitting here with probably my head down crying. I probably would have been out of business very quickly. Right? Paolo, who hopefully you saw his presentation a little earlier. I think it was yesterday. And so you will want to go back and watch that one. And then my two fitness besties, Shelly and Rosa. Okay, so Shelly's my first business fitness bestie, and again, I couldn't have done any of this without Shelly. And then Rosa's been awesome also. Okay, enough of that. Thank you, everybody, for being who you guys are. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in. So we're going to talk about my little journey into screening. So I started doing the small group. I started getting people coming in, and I followed Dan and Cody's advice in terms of what to do for a screening. And as part of the FAS, they talk about the senior fitness test. Okay, so this is what I did. I call this client screening version 1.0. Right, so I'm like, okay, I don't know anything. So they're like, hey, I'm like, let's do the senior fitness test. That's what they say to do. No problem. Bought the book, read the book, practiced these, and I used these 3 tests. So the 30-second chair stand test, the 30-second arm curl test, and the 2-minute step test. Okay, I don't think I need to show it or go into it very much. I suspect most of you are familiar with these, right? The 30-second chair stand test. How many chair stands can they do in 30 seconds? It's a test of lower body functional strength. And then your 30-second arm curl tests are basically just doing an arm curl like this for the 30 seconds with a 5-pound weight for women and an 8-pound weight for men. And you're counting how many they do in the 30 seconds. It's a test of upper body strength, functional ability. And then the 2-minute step test, basically you get them near a wall, you find the halfway point of between their knee and their thigh, you put a piece of tape, and then they're bringing their knees up, and you count how many times they bring one knee up, and they do that for 2 minutes, okay? Now so I would do these pretty much during my sales presentation. So during my strategy sessions, you know, I talk with them, I do a little bit of the health screening, and then we'd come and do these 3 tests, okay? It was a really good sales tool, because, you know, they always say get people's blood pumping, and then that gets the endorphins going, and then they're going to be more likely to want to sign up and do something in the long term. And it did give me an idea of how they were moving, but I didn't really have a way to capture that, right? Because all you're getting is a number. You're getting 20 chair stands, right? You're getting 20 arm curl tests. You're getting 50 steps. And so, and you could kind of see that they didn't move well, or you could see that they move really well, but it was extremely subjective and not very helpful. So, you know, the plus is very easy to do. The screen, super easy, not very intimidating. It's a great general fitness assessment. Like I said, you're going to get an idea of how conditioned or deconditioned they are, either through the chair stand or the 2-minute step test. And then it was great because they do have a set of norms. So there's a whole, if you get the book, they have all these tables. And so it was a great sales tool because you would get them to do the test. You'd show them, okay, you're 65. This is where you fall in terms of ability. And, you know, sometimes it wasn't so great. So then they'd be like, yes, absolutely, I really need this. However, there was no impact on programming. So they would sign up and they would just show up and we would just toss them into training. Sure, as we watched them the first few times, we could get a little bit better idea of what was, you know, how well they could move and things. But once again, extremely subjective, not very consistent, and really no programming path, okay, like a programming path. So I was doing something. Was it great? Was it the best? No. And what would happen is people would get hurt pretty quickly. So either they came in hurt and I never, you know, I would do their health screening, but, you know, there was nothing to say, well, you have this injury or you have this problem, right? We don't think you should be doing certain things. No, it was just, and so people would very quickly get injured. They would stop coming because they would, they weren't getting great results, okay? So enter client screening version 1.5, okay? So I had learned FMS very early on, okay? So, right, I bought the business in March of 2014. I started doing small group training in October of that year, and then finally transitioned into completely doing small group training of February of that year. And that was the same month that I signed up and went to the FMS 2.5 day workshop. Okay, so I know about this much about training at this point. And I go to the FMS workshop and it was like drinking out of a fire hose. And I literally was crying at the end. I'm like, I don't understand any of this, right? The things and the concepts they were talking about, you know, motor control. I'm like, what's motor control? And it was extremely overwhelming. So I didn't really do anything with the knowledge at that time, okay? So FMS, right? It's the functional movement screen or functional movement system, FMS for short, that's what everybody calls it. It is the gold standard for screening movement quality, okay? And that's basically what you're screening is movement competency. Okay, so it's going to tell you as a screen, it's going to tell you what people can't do or what causes pain. Okay, now it's been around since the 90s, mid to late 90s or so. You may know Gray Cook, right? So the people behind it, Gray Cook, Lee Burton, Phil Plisky, primarily Gray. Everybody, he's always been the front of the organization, doing lots of workshops and getting out there talking. So it was started in the 90s. And the reason they started doing this was to help high school and collegiate athletes, local high school and collegiate athletes in Virginia. And then it was, right, it just kind of exploded amongst the athlete population. And so the US military picked it up, the NFL picked it up. I think the Colts were one of the first organizations that started doing it. But it really was designed to help and improve athletes or very high performing general population. Okay. FMS, you know, it's the company, it's the brand, and they've actually got a bunch more. The FMS, which is the functional movement screen, is the basic movement screen, and they've gone further. They have a thing called the SFMA. They have a functional capacity screen now. There's the Y balance test. There's a motor control screen. So they've added on to all their screening tools. There's a breathing screen, but FMS really is the thing that a lot of people know. You know, it's used by a lot of higher end, you know, strength and conditioning training facilities, okay? Whether it's for athletes or general population, okay? Let's see, I think Equinox uses it as their screening standard. And I know that here locally, there was the Bay Clubs that were using it, like introducing it to all their trainers and getting all their trainers to use it with their clients, okay? So I knew FMS, but I never actually ever rolled it out to my clients. And that's because it's very difficult to administer, okay, for the 50+ market. Yes, it does have a huge impact on programming based on the screen and based on their model and their system. But I'll tell you, I very first learned it, I said, okay, great. And I came back and I screened all my clients, and most of them couldn't do it. And it was very complicated for me to then take the information that it provided, okay? And so it was made for athletes. It's used in the NFL Combine. What you want to think of in terms of the information you're going to get is, first, you want to look at movement. So athletes, right? So let's say a person doing what is that? Jumping up and putting the ball in the hoop there, right? A jump shot. So they're going to jump, they're going to be on a single leg, they're doing their jump, they got to reach overhead, and when they land, they have to be able to land nicely. And let's say the NBA would have these great, you know, athletes, these great basketball players who were shooting lots of scores and you know, playing well enough, but they were continually getting hurt, okay? And so they'd get hurt, they send them off to the PT, and, you know, Gray and Lee and all those guys were physical therapists. They're all physical therapists by trade. And they couldn't understand. Then they'd fix them, they'd send them out to play again, and guess what? They'd get hurt again. And so then they'd go back to the physical therapist. Hey, physical therapist, you didn't do your job. You know, they're still getting hurt. And so what Gray and Lee and everybody, they figured out was you need to have this basic movement competency, because you can perform really well and you can have great skill at your sport, but if you're not moving well underlying all that, you're going to be having issues. So for example, you know, the person is jumping And right, if they're not comfortable being on a single leg for whatever reason, there's no alignment, right? Then they're going to end up, that's not a good position. They're in a compromised position. And when they land, which is, kind of that squat jump, and you squat and let's say their knee is all valgus, right? They're going to keep getting hurt, or their back is going to be hurting. They're just, it's all about having a standard operating procedure or a standard language of what is good movement, what makes for good movement. Because when you move really well, right, then you're going to be able to perform better, and you're going to be able to excel. Then you can focus on the skills of the game versus just, basic movement patterns. So that's why they came up with it. Okay. So the screen, this is the screen right here. There's 7 movements that you take a client through, okay? And each of these is telling you a little bit of information, and you would, so you would look at the results as a whole, as well as each individual movement. Then once you screen them, there's a hierarchy that you follow in terms of assigning the corrective exercises. Okay, so then, what basically from the movement screen, you're going to identify what their weak link is, and you're going to do corrective exercises for that one weak link. Then you're also going to identify red lights. So things that they either should stop doing completely or not do as much. So you want to keep the volume minimal. Okay. So it's a great system in terms of, giving you a clear path to follow once you get the screen, because that's going to impact the programming. And then the people, you're going to be giving the right exercise for that individual based on their movement screen. Okay. So the first one is all about hip mobility. So that's called the active straight leg raise, hip mobility. The second one there is your shoulder mobility. The guy in that plank position that's trunk stability push-up, which identifies core strength. And there's rotary stability, which is all about core stability. The deep squat, right? The hurdle step, which is that second one on the bottom. And finally, the inline lunge, okay? And I actually did some videos of me doing each of these, okay? So this is I'm gonna show you each of these, okay? So that at least you get an idea. I promised you know what FMS was about, and I'll just walk you through. So basically there would be a second person there. It was just me today. So when I shot this video, so there would be a second person who would hold a stick. Basically, you just ask the person to bring their leg up as high as you can, and then it comes back down. And you want to see how high they can bring that leg up. If they can get it as high as I do, then that's a great score. If they can only bring it up between their knee and the middle of their thigh, then that's a fine score. And if they can't get it past their knee, apparently I didn't edit that one properly, but there you go. If they can't get it past their knee, then that's not clearing. And this is a test of hip mobility, the ability to bring that leg up without moving through their pelvis, okay? So this is a test of hip mobility.
Dina, we can't see the video.
Oh, well,
we just see you, which isn't bad, but.
I know, hold on. Thank you. We are gonna see. You get to see then you get to hear me all over again, explain it. All righty. And then I won't show the flub that I had. Okay, right here. Let's go ahead and show you. This is called the active straight leg raise. It's a test of hip mobility. Basically, there would be somebody, the testing person would hold the stick at the person's mid thigh and ask them to bring the leg up as high as they can. This is a test of hip mobility, how high they can bring the leg up without having to use their lower back or their pelvis. Okay. So I've got really good hip mobility. I've got that going for me. If you can bring the leg up that high, that's really good. If you can't get the leg past the knee, that's not good. Okay. And there, so that is the active straight leg raise. Okay. The second one, I'm going to make you guys dizzy, is the shoulder mobility. Can you still see that?
Oh, no,
just you.
just you.
Just me again. So why does it turn off? Huh. Okay, I might have to desktop share. Okay, there.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So shoulder mobility, which is a test of shoulder mobility, how well they can get. And so they basically just take their arms back behind them. You just get them to bring one arm up and over, the other one under, together in one motion. So you see I've got a 2 on one side. And then on the other side, not so great because I've got left shoulder issues, real tight in there. So then, bam, right there, you can, you would screen, that's how you screen people for their shoulder mobility. I'm not going to get too in depth on how you score it and all that. This is really just a general overview. But that tells you, right, what they got going on through their shoulder complex. Any pain issues, the inability to move through your shoulder complex. Okay. There we go. Okay, then we go into core. This is a rotary stability. So you get the person down on all fours, they straddle the board, and you're going to have them take one arm and the opposite leg out, touch their elbow to knee, out and down. Same thing, out on the other side, out, in, and down. And that assesses their ability to stabilize through their core. Okay. Just watch these carefully for what they have to do and how we set them up. The next one is called trunk stability push-up. And this is core strength. So you set the person down on the floor. The hands for women, you start them hands at their chin. So there's a specific spot where you want to put their hands at the chin. And you have them come straight up. And bam, I nailed it. And I can only do one, I'll tell you. Then if they can't do that, then you put their hands at their clavicle and you have them come up. And again, you're just looking to come straight up, no lag. Okay. Alrighty, we got our deep squat. And I was talking on this one, I don't want to talk. Okay, so basically their hip width, feet are straight ahead. You check the width of the feet by putting the stick in the inside of the foot, armpit. Then they take the stick, they put it on their head. They're going to take the arms straight overhead. You want them at a 90-90 right there. And then you're going to say, descend down as deep as you can, hold for a second, and come back up. And it's not so great on me. Then I do okay. My arms come forward, so I wouldn't clear on that one. So what you do then is you have, if they don't clear on that first feet flat on the floor, you get them to put their heels up on the board, and you do the exact same thing, right? Make sure they're hip width on the feet. You get the stick, you put it on your head, make sure their arms are 90-90. Arms up overhead. So I know a lot of folks probably are familiar with an overhead squat test, and there you go, I nail it. So I'm a 2 when it comes to doing the deep squat. Bam, my arms stay overhead, all of that. So that's your deep squat. Okay, hurdle step. So what you do is feet together, heels and toes touching the backside of the test kit. You've measured their tibia, and the string is at the height of the person's tibia. And they're going to put the stick on their back across their shoulders. And I found out I have bitchy resting face, by the way, so please don't laugh at me. Okay, they have to come up, touch the foot, touch in front with the foot, coming back over. I touched and that was awful, so I wouldn't have cleared. That would definitely be a 1 because I touched the string. And right there, touch the string again. And then you can see I'm shaking side to side, not super awesome. I think I do a little better on this one. I think I still, and then you saw my foot come out, right? You're supposed to stay perfectly aligned as you're doing this. Bam, still didn't clear, but a little bit more solid and stable. Okay, bam, right there. So that's the hurdle step. Okay, the last one, which is the inline lunge. You're gonna love this one. Okay, what they do is they get an inline position. So you get them onto the board. The toe is at the 0 mark. Their heel of the front foot is on their tibia length. The stick goes on their back, and I actually messed up because the wrong arm is up. And then you have them come down and then come back up. And I actually did pretty good. I think I leaned forward just a little bit, so I'd probably be a 2. I wouldn't be a full-on 3. Right there. And then you'd have them switch sides. Right. Leg there. And while they're on the board there, they take the stick. This time I did it correctly in terms of the arms. Okay, they put the stick along their back. Drop the knee. Come up. I think I did a little better on that side. Bam. Okay, so that's the inline lunge. Now, okay, I showed you all the tests. Now, I'm going to ask you, right, how many people of these deconditioned over 50 could actually do these tests? And I will tell you very, 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 very few. Okay, so I tried to do it, and it basically just led to a lot of not happiness, right? So people they were just, it was not fun. It was not fun for them. It was not fun for me. You try to do the hurdle step, right? They're knocking that thing over each single time. They couldn't even complete it. The inline lunge, they couldn't even set up. We tried to get them on the board. You saw how I used the stick. They couldn't get in line. They would fall off the board. You try and get the stick on their back, right? They'd fall off the board. They couldn't even get there. It was just a mess. And so, okay, great. So they can't do it. So they're a 1. We know they're a 1, but that's not very helpful in terms of, okay, great. They couldn't even set up. So, so I'll tell you how I got to Client Screening 2.0, but before I do that, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you guys that there is what they're calling a modified FMS, which is supposed to be for, special populations. So for, the older population. So, if you say FMS and they're like, oh, and I train older adults, oh yeah, we've got the modified FMS. And so you would do the deep squat, the overhead deep squat test, the shoulder mobility, the active straight leg raise, and then there's a whole motor control screen that I attempted once just myself, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't gonna work. So basically I I knew I needed a screening system, but FMS, it's like the way it is, just it wasn't going to work. So I worked with Jared Wooliver, who is Smart Group Training. I had gone to his facility early on and learned a lot from him on, you know, how to do FMS, how to screen in groups. But I never actually did anything with that information until 3.5, 4 years ago now. And he came out and he helped me develop my own FMS style approach. And so my client screening now, I screen for hip mobility, right? So how tight are they in the hips, right? How well can they move through the hips? And it could be a tissue restriction thing. It could be that they're just tight, or it could be a stability thing. You know, they have range of motion. They're just not able to access it because they're not engaging. They're moving through their back. They're not engaging through their core, things like that. Pelvic stability, right? Shoulder mobility, just like you saw. I do a different kind of core engagement test to see what kind of core engagement they've got, right? I still do a squat test differently though, and I'm going to show this to you in just a second because I want to know if they can squat or not, right? If they can squat and they clear, let's absolutely, you know, have them doing deep squats, goblet squats, kettlebell squats, things like that. But if they can't, then great. Let's either have you do loaded chair stands instead, or, you know, help you get to doing deep squats if you have, you know, if your knees are fine. Same thing with the lunge. You know, I want to screen whether they can touch their toes or not. I get them to do a single leg stance, hip rotation. The single leg stance, hip rotation stuff, and the toe touch stuff is all the things I've learned from Dr. Evan Osar. And I know everybody knows Dr. Evan Osar. His stuff is awesome. I have learned a tremendous amount from him and his materials. And then I do a breathing screen and I do the 30-second chair stand test, okay? So I have video number 2. Okay, there we go. That's what I did wrong last time. I'm going to take you through my movement screen now. Okay, I look frowny face, I know. Okay, and so my whole movement screen, it's about 9 movements, and I'll just take you through it. Me doing it all on my own takes 4 minutes, but when you're doing it with a client, right, because you have to explain what to do, it takes about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes total. So, you know, the screening process does not have to be that long. And when you learn how to do this, you're able to just do it fast, and you are going to get so much great information out of it. Okay. So the very first one I do is the active straight leg raise. So normally I would be standing next to the person. I'd have the stick at their knee and looking to see how high they can bring their leg up. So, right, a difference from FMS. FMS assumes everybody's getting a 3. So they put the stick, I don't know if you guys, yeah, that's in the way. They put the stick at the mid thigh. They start with the stick at the mid thigh, right? Because they're thinking people are going to be a 2 or a 3. Well, hardly anybody that walks into my place is a 2 or a 3. Most people are 1. So I always start with the stick right at the knee. So when you put the stick up there to see if they can get that medius malleolus past the stick, I always start at the knee. Most people are a 1. They're not going to get it past their knee. If they do get it past their knee, then I make it more legit. I find that midpoint, and then I have them do it, and I see if they're a 2 or a 3. So that's the first one. Okay. Yep. I still got great hip mobility. I am very happy about that. Okay, then, nope, come on, we're done with that. All righty. Then I keep them down on the floor. I have them do some pelvic tilts just to see how well they move through their pelvis. Then I'll do a shoulder flexion test, keeping their elbows straight, trying to touch the floor back behind them. I don't have great shoulder flexion, as you can see, but that's going to tell us, you know, how well they can flex through their shoulders, tight lats, right? they can't, if they don't clear that, then they shouldn't be overhead pressing, right? Or you can press them at more of a 45-degree landmine style. Okay, then this is the core engagement test. It's the happy baby. It's what Evan calls the happy baby. They bring one leg up, second leg up, then they bring both feet down. It's all about maintaining your canister. If I have them bring that second leg up and their body moves or their pelvis, you know, tips forward or they press their belly out, you know that that deep inner core not happening. They don't have the ability to stabilize through their deep inner core. Alrighty, then we turn on over and and so you can see I kept the ASLR from FMS. I kept this one, which is the trunk stability push-up. And bam, what I do differently is I don't care where they put their hands. So I'm not looking for chin, I'm not looking for clavicle. I'm just like, put your hands wherever you can and see if you can come straight on up. Majority of people can't even get off the floor. Okay, so then I'm like, okay, great. No core again, no core engagement. And then people that come straight up, I'm like, sweet, I know what I can do with you and what you can't do. Okay, so then that's our trunk stability push-up test. Then we do 2 pain clearance tests. The first is a back extension pain clearance test, a little cobra pose. And then the second one is child pose. So what is that? Back flexion pain clearance test. And you're just asking, is there any pain? Okay. Then I go to my inline lunge, right? So instead of asking them to get on a board that they're never going to be able to and get in line, not happening, we start from the ground up. Can they even be in a half kneeling position, right? This is where you're going to get a lot of people who, you know, they can't even get into a half kneeling position. You got them in line and they're, you know, they're going to tip over. Great information to have. So we get in line, we ask them to come straight up, hold for a second and come straight back down. Okay, straight on up, straight back down. I notice I'm a little wobbly, but that is actually clearing. And then we do it on the other side. You can see me doing it. Basically, most people can't even get up, okay? Because they're not able to stabilize through their pelvis and their low back to give a base of a good solid base of support to come up. And I'm a little wobblier on that side. But that for me is clearing. That means they can do lunges, right? They're able to be in a half kneeling position and they have enough stability and control to be able to come up smoothly and then come back down. I've got a medium one in there. If they can come up, but it's like, you know, they're really moving over, then I have that, I give that to them. And because at least I know they've got enough stability to come up, but they just don't know how to execute that full movement. Okay, what's the next one? Oh yeah, the squat. I even have to look at my notes. How crazy is that when you're nervous, huh? Okay, deep squat. So we're never gonna have anybody do any kind of overhead squatting, right? Any kind of power lifting. So I just wanna know, can they come down into a nice squat position? Do they have the range of motion? Do they have stability? Bam. Okay. Then we do the shoulder mobility test right there, feet together, heels and toes touching, make a fist with your thumb inside and just zoop on one side. And then I think I did 2. I probably didn't need to for the purposes of this demonstration. And then zoop on the other side in there. So I'm a 2-1. I would need to work on shoulder mobility on the right side. So then bam. Then we do a shoulder pain clearance test. That's your standard impingement test. Oh my God, that's so tight. Then I do a toe touch. Come down, touch your toes, yes or no. That's giving you a lot of great information on pelvic, the ability to rotate through your pelvis. Awesome. Then I do a hip rotation, and this is all from Evan Osar. And I ask them which side is more restricted. You want to see kind of range of motion, but you can see on my left side is more restricted. One more time each side. And then I do my single leg stance. Just stand on one leg, right? Can you not fall over, right? And as soon as you do that, you'll see a whole bunch of alignment issues for people who can't do that. We're not looking to have them stand on one leg for 30 seconds or anything, right? What you're looking for are alignment issues, ankle, knee, and hip aligned and all that. So that is my screen, right? It gives me lots of great information. You can see that I took some stuff from the functional movement screen. I'm getting lots of great information without putting my, prospects in a compromised position that's going to be extremely frustrating for them and extremely frustrating for me. Okay, and so the screen is basically the foundation for my ultimate 30-minute training system. So this is an online course, right? You knew there was going to be a pitch in there somewhere. This is an online course that I'm putting together for FAI, that FAI is going to be offering, taking my system. So I do 30-minute training sessions. I have 10 minutes of movement prep. So this is where we talked about the importance of corrective exercises, right? Because, there's a lot of muscle imbalances, core engagement issues, right? It's not like you're going to have them walk in and start doing kettlebell swings. So I have 10 minutes of movement prep and 20 minutes of hard work. During the movement prep is when they're doing their corrective exercises. I have 6 movement prep tracks based on their weak link. And then it also warms them up for the hard work, because let's say you're supposed to give them corrective exercises. When are they going to do it? They aren't going to do it at home, right? So within my training session, I'm giving them the time to be able to do their correctives. Okay, 20 minutes of hard work is where we work with the red lights. So the things that they should not be doing yet based on the screen. Okay, and I follow a standard knee, hip, push, pull, core, and integrating all the FAI components of mobility and gait, coordination, balance, brain health, all that. Okay, so you've got the movement screen. I just showed you the movement screen. I'm measuring all these things, and it's identifying the weak link and the red lights. And that's what we assign them, a corrective track, corrective exercise program. So then when they sign up with me, I'm telling them we're doing a movement screen and you're going to have a corrective exercise, an individualized corrective exercise program. So it adds more value to my service. And then we've identified their red lights, what they aren't supposed to be doing during the hard work. And there you go. The ultimate 30-minute training system. It's what's gotten me to happy clients, clients getting results, clients not getting injured, or at least having a clear path and knowing what to deal with all the issues everybody walks in here with, right? To, having 150 clients, etc. So I'm still working on the course. Little by little, we're pulling it together. It's going to be $199 through FAI. And you can learn all about the system and how it works, and then how to implement it. And if you want the slides, because I know I didn't have the slides as a handout, you can always email me. Bam. 3 minutes left, JR. You're on mute, honey.
Great job. How exciting. You are funny. That is for sure.
So I've been told.
So I appreciate that. So great job. Fantastic. Very, very actionable. So thank you for that. So we had a few questions come through. Some were related. I wanted to start with the functional movement screening ones first. So any specific questions? Very engaging. Great comments here. So some of it is, how hard can it be to implement the first time?
No, that was my question. That was in quotes. How hard can it be? That's Dina's tagline.
That's my tagline.
So that wasn't a legit question.
It's a good one though. How hard can it be? How did you have to fumble a handful of times? What was like just beginning with your
Absolutely.
patients?
So, I did work with Jared to kick the whole thing off. I did it over a 6-week period when I very first kicked it all off, where I would screen. We would take the first 5 minutes of every training session and do one screen, like 1 or 2, because we didn't want to take up the whole movement training session. And so we were just collecting little by little. I mean, I've got this thing perfected, I'll tell you, right? So the first time around, that's how we did it. Second time around, we actually used the whole training session because we said, this is part of your movement. This is part of your training is getting
Yep.
screened. And so we used the whole thing, right? Kicking it off to new groups of people, like current clients is one thing where you're trying to mass screen a lot of people, right? One-on-one, much easier as you're bringing this in. And that is part of the course offering is if you take the course and you're like, wow, I really want to implement this in my facility or with my clients. So I know we don't have a lot of people who are facility owners, but want to implement this, then I'm also available to take you through kind of a 6-week implementation. I just helped Rosa in Southern California implement this, and I'm working with another person right now to implement as well.
Yeah, that's great. And, I'm sure there's so many other tricks, practicing on friends, family first, just getting like with anything when you're first starting, it's just some reps in. So you get comfortable. You don't want to do this on your first group program launch and try to get 10 people in at once. So even some free sessions to book and get some practice in with some clients, they'd see it as a value add. So
Absolutely.
very valuable. How about reevaluations? So like
That's
when you
why,
start with people, how often is there a pace, something that you would recommend for people? Has it helped them show their progress if they're coming, your group's a little bit different. Maybe, they don't quite know the results they're getting. Has it helped you retain people or
absolutely.
show them the progress they're making when in their head it probably wasn't good enough? Have you seen that at all?
So we rescreen every 4 months.
Okay.
So through so 3 times a year, we rescreen everybody. And right, we do it during their training session. During COVID though, since people weren't coming in, I had appointments, things like that. And then yes, you want to see people improve, but this gives you the data to be able to tell your clients, guess what, you're not doing 100-pound deadlifts because you haven't cleared the hip hinge pattern, right? And then, you need to do your corrective exercises in order for you to get better so that then we can have you doing those things. Because if you're not cleared to do it, you're going to end up hurt. Okay. And that's what helps with, sometimes you get these clients who are all just totally gung-ho on everything. And you're like, I don't think they should be doing that. So, you're like, hey, guess what? You didn't clear. So guess what? You're not gonna be doing that. Right. And then getting them, but it gives you the knowledge and the data and the path forward on how to deal with some of the crazy shit that we see coming into our gym. And not just be like, I don't know, until they get hurt.
I think that's a great point. So like you're saying here is this could also be a tool to not only determine somebody else is individual safety, but if you're starting to get into groups, how to pair the right level of people together potentially, or they want to jump into a group before they've got their movements down, slowing their roll,
Actually,
just really being in communication.
I'll stop you there. The movement screen, I've got everybody's screen written down. I have a card for everybody, all my clients. And this allows me to have a brand new person right next to, one of my total veteran clients, because people want to come when they come, right?
Mm-hmm.
People want to come at 6 a.m. I can't say, oh, hey, everybody's got bad hip mobility. You're all coming at 10 a.m. Right. And Dan likes to say, all your knee people, just bring your knee people all in at the same time. Nobody wants to do that. Right. And so this way you're having a consistent experience with at whatever time and whatever trainer you have.
I like that. So you could essentially, if they know their exercises have a progression or regression, and everybody's coming out with their individualized program at a time.
Exactly. So if I can have somebody doing a deep squat right next to the person doing their chair stand, their loaded chair stand, or just a regular chair stand because they haven't cleared squat.
Awesome. Let's talk about this. This is a little bit different situation, but maybe somebody's looking to work in a medical center or a cardiac rehab. We used it as our screening when they came in. If you are integrated with the medical, if they had dysfunction, and we used a combo just like you were very creative, Dina. I loved that because the great cook gave us a great insight, but we also were into neurokinetic training as well as the PT pain rating scales. So we created our own. And essentially when people would come in, if they came in for fitness training, weight loss, well-being, if they had dysfunction or pain, then we would integrate them direct access into PT. So it was a great combination between PTs and trainers to work back to each other and then integrate it in the medical center so they can use their insurance and have some of those activities. So have you seen any ability of using it to show PTs, local referrals, those in your area at this point, that you may be a better suit for them because of your level of knowledge of knowing how to progress post-rehab, pre-surgical, post-surgical type patients with this type of communication?
Yeah, I mean, I've not been as successful with that. It's always, so FMS has got the FMS and the SFMA, right? So the FMS is a screen. Okay, so it's only going to tell you, do they clear, do they not clear, can they do these movements, can they not do these movements? But if they present with pain, right, or there's pain in these movements, then you're supposed to refer them out. And what FMS likes is that you find someone who's SFMA, and then you're kind of talking the same language. So then it'll be like, hey, you know what? I had this person, I had them do their deep squat and they had pain. Right? Or I had, they do their ASLR, their shoulder mobility, whatever, and they had pain. And then you can, then that SFMA person then does a little bit more using the SFMA screen to help then identify more the why, because we can't say why they're having pain. We can't diagnose anything. And so the ideal is that you work with, if you're FMS certified, you're going to work with an SFMA person, all that. And I'll tell you, here in the Bay Area, I've never been able to find that setup. So I do work with some other PTs, but.
Yeah, it's a powerful tool. We definitely loved it. And, ours was just a hybrid between the both. So if they had pain, then we'd refer to the doctor. If it was dysfunction, most of our trainers that were trained like you are would be able to handle that, but some of the trainers didn't have that same skill set. It was one of those tools. How do you train it and learn it? And just like you said, you have a wonderful offer here for somebody to jump in and to learn how to begin implementing this, because it's a great concept, but without the implementation, it doesn't have all the value that you presented here today. So pretty spectacular. So Shelley had a question. Do you ever struggle with getting buy-in with younger people that haven't really been hurt yet, when they think they can go hard, or have you been able to show them how this can help their performance to get them thinking the right way about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I always ask people is, and especially people who have worked with other trainers, and when they come in, so nobody has ever pushed back on me because they're like thinking, wow, this is the coolest thing ever because I'm getting screened, right? Did I ever get screened at a gym? No. Did I ever get screened by another trainer? Almost everybody is no, because they're going to 24-hour fitness or they're going to City Sport. And, most trainers aren't doing any kind of screening. So no, I don't get any pushback from most people, because most people that want to train with us are looking to not get hurt. I mean, that's one of the value propositions.
They're not trying to get drafted or win the Super Bowl next year, but
Correct,
they are trying to stay active and well and love.
They're like, I want to start, doing some kind of training, but I don't want to get hurt. And the last trainer I worked with, or the other place where I got hurt, And so then this shows that, yes, we're taking this seriously. We know what we're doing, and we're going to make sure you don't get hurt. So then, yeah, I see a question. Find clients get frustrated if they fail to execute the movements. So do you mean during the screen itself?
Yes.
Right? You can't fail, right? What I tell them is, I said, no, it's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So somebody that can't do the push-up test, right? Because 90% of the folks can't do it, right? I get them, they go like this. They, some people laugh. They're like, you want me to do what? They do it. I say, great, right? They're the inline lunge one. I get a lot of people, they can't do that. I tell them, if don't do it if you're going to fall over, because people try and do it and then they fall over and they hurt their wrist. And so, like any kind of screen, I mean, yeah, I get the neurotic people who are like, oh, I can't do anything right. And I'm like, okay, but that's not a factor of the screen. That's like, a factor of how a person feels about themselves.
That's
so you just say, hey, that's exactly what that's why I say, we're trying to find, this is a screen. We're trying to find what you can't do and what causes pain so that we can adapt your programming appropriately.
You said something incredibly powerful there that I hope everybody really heard, is there's no failure. And multiple times throughout the presentation, one thing that was very evident was your mindset. So I believe through your years through the mastermind, your collaboration and community with awesome people, your humor and comfort on here has really given you that mindset that there is no failure. The only thing in what fitness is practice. And that's the only perfection we can have, is to show up each day and improve. Because when you take that movement screening, you didn't fail. That's just now your plan to improve. And it's customized versus you doing 20 of the things that you probably don't have an imbalance on when we're trying to get better overall. So that attitude, that way of communicating and simplicity shows of the work that you've put in, Dina. And what a fabulous lecture. And I think that's my time. I think I went over yesterday.
Yeah, we're only supposed to go over 5 minutes, and I'm sure they're going to yell at us, but that's okay.
Okay, that's me. I choke, so I own it. But fantastic, and thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thanks. I'll press end. Okay.
I don't know if we do or don't, but maybe yes. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.